Please remember to subscribe. It's just one click for you, but it helps me a lot creating new videos. Thank you. As the pandemic worsens and the U.S. economy teeters on the edge of another downturn, corporate bankruptcies are up 43% from 2019, including Hertz, Penney, and Neiman Marcus. Almost a third of Americans missed a rent or mortgage payment in July. A new report is saying that 12 million Americans will lose their unemployment benefits the day after Christmas. The number of Americans filing first-time claims for jobless benefits rose last week, as new business restrictions to control spiraling infections unleashed a fresh wave of layoffs, which could further slow the labor market recovery. The number of Americans applying for state unemployment benefits remains significantly higher than pre-pandemic levels. New jobless claims rose for the first time in 5 weeks, signaling an increase in layoffs. Restaurant reservations tapered off amid new government restrictions and fear of catching the virus. Drivers bought less gas. And consumer confidence slipped in early November. 742,000 Americans filed for first-time unemployment claims last week, breaking a 4-week streak of drops as the second-wave lockdown impacts are starting to be evident. Millions and millions have already used up all their unemployment benefits. Unemployed Americans have seen their benefits shrink over the past few months, and the holiday season will bring yet another financial blow. After Christmas, 12 million Americans will see their unemployment benefits drop to zero, that's according to a new report from the Century Foundation. As a result, personal incomes may see a roughly $226 million drop. So, in essence, governments threw money at unemployed workers to keep them quiet during the first months of the psyop. Now, these people have permanently lost their jobs and will soon lose their homes and apartments. Hundreds of companies bankrupt mean tens of thousands of people had their livelihoods ruined. It's a big mess. Small businesses especially are dropping like flies. Can you imagine the bar and restaurant owners? In what industry can governors vilify you for months and expect any different outcome? Economic momentum is waning, and will shortly fall out of bed. In the meantime, inflation will begin to accelerate. That spells stagflation. Stocks are very vulnerable. Nearly 1 in 10 companies are planning layoffs in the next 3 months. That's on top of the 29% of the companies that have already cut staffing in Q4. Companies are announcing tens of thousands of layoffs. Things look bleak for the millions of unemployed workers looking for jobs, as there is also the looming prospect of more corporate bankruptcies and business closures, putting more pressure on the jobs market. More than 420,000 small businesses have closed their doors permanently since the beginning of the pandemic. That represents a staggering 7.1% of all small businesses. The Fed's money helicopter just crashed. The plan is to bankrupt the 99% and take everything we own using the lockdowns. Then they make us rent it back from them. Fight back or live as slaves. If we lose, they won't even allow most of us to live at all. If businesses lay off employees, their business is effectively done. No employees, no business. Understand the collapse of supply chains. People laid off for any amount of time seldom return. Businesses that provide products to other industries can no longer do so, and their customers fail as well. The system collapses, while former employees are now dependents of the state and reliable progressive voters, not out of ideology but necessary to keep sustenance coming. The goal was to shut down the economy. The globalists and Davos bankers believed they would achieve victory for their greed, and the Great Reset would flourish in the recovery. Somehow, everyone in the 1% would win. The PPP was a plan to beat the scammers, and it worked in a fashion. The criminal theft was only to be expected. Loopholes abound every time someone puts together a plan like this. But the pandemic worked immensely well. It has taken on a life of its own. The world economy is hurting, and nobody would believe the all clear if it were screamed out by Hollywood all at once endlessly. The pandemic has killed the world economy, and we only see the start. Woe to us all if they win. I recently realized that the real problem facing the world is too many people chasing too few jobs. Slick automation is making it worse. Real Buck Rogers inventions. This is why globalism keeps popping up and why it will eventually win. The Davos bankers will also eventually win a world that contains more than massive unemployment and underemployment. Endless money printing, aka MMT, only works without creating inflation if you have full employment along with NIRP. Less than full employment causes too much money chasing too few gainfully employed people. The Fed will see its worshipped inflation at this time. And probably, a growing number of trillionaires. Great job 1%. The pandemic was the catalyst. The world has officially tipped over and is rolling downhill like a growing out-of-control snowball. The Fed has at best one more massive money-printing extravaganza in its toolbox. Then, there's nothing left except a bigger and faster-growing snowball rolling downhill toward us all. $8 trillion to banks and their corporations. It's simple: bankrupt everything, give yourself more currency, buy what you want from the ashes, and enslavement for the people. Any future stimulus should target small businesses, unemployment supplementation, extension, and verifiable pandemic expenses by state and local governments. No general huge bailout for state and local governments. Now is the time to make those long-needed reductions to federal, state, and local government budgets. The need has been there for years. See the state pension funding shortfalls caused by lack of transparency and overpromising of benefits by state officials wanting support by public unions, much to the general public's disadvantage, as just one example for the need to rein in their spending. At least 75% of the taxpayers don't work a public sector job. Time for us tax donkeys to wait up and demand change. And the darkest days are ahead. Welcome back to the Atlantis Report. You are here for your daily dose of the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Please take a second to click the like button. As many of you have asked me about where they can buy silver and gold bullion. You will find in the description box the links where you can buy American Silver Eagle, silver bars, and rounds. I highly recommend that you too start stacking some silver bullion for the future. CNN is running stories of pitiful folks in miles-long lines waiting for free food in Dallas, most claiming they can't find a job, while small businesses are buying automation because they can't find anyone to hire, or even respond to job openings and ads. This is the glory of state unemployment: the government is paying people not to work. It's bad enough that employers pay their employees not to work, but at least employees still have to show up. Government dependency ensures they never look for a job again, or at least until the teat dries up. By then, they have no marketable skills and no will to even try. Humans are easily corruptible, which is what gives politics so much power. It is only direct and immediate consequence that teaches us anything, and once the government removes that, we are as defenseless as a baby. Financial market prices are now nothing more than leading-edge hyperinflation. Helicopter money for Wall Street from our good old Federal Reserve does wonders, doesn't it? Wall Street has hit all-time highs. But food lines have hit all-time highs also. Corporations get everything, the rest get nothing. Corporate tax cuts from 35% all the way down to 21%, the Fed buys up all their bad debt, zombie companies brought back to life thanks to free money from the Fed, and all them trillions going into the Federal Reserve inflated stocks. And to top it all off, companies no longer have to issue new debt that will have to be paid back with interest. Now all they have to do is issue new shares of stocks, and the Fed will buy. Wall Street is now an easy street, while others are lined up on Poverty Street. And the main street has been converted to a back alley street. We can't pay back the loans we took because the money does not exist, so we have to take on more loans to create the money to pay back our old loans. See how it works? Then when we refuse to borrow more and we can't pay the loans, and since the Fed is the largest holder of our debt, they, of course, will repo the USA. Going all according to plan, and it only took 107 years. This is nothing in the scheme of things. The fact the Fed or any country's central bank exists is pure criminal. Americans even had it in black and white in their constitution that only the government can issue its money, and they still effed it up. It's a foreign installment. There's nothing federal about it, and it's raping our country. Just think, if former Federal Reserve Chairperson Janet Yellen gets the U.S. Treasury Secretary job, there will be no more issues. The Federal Reserve will be in complete control. And the marriage between the U.S. Treasury Department and the Federal Reserve will then be complete. And the financial takeover of the world by the Federal Reserve and their international banking masters will be almost complete. Next would be the elimination of our US dollar and all other sovereign fiat currencies and replace them all with a one-world digital fiat currency, owned and controlled by the IMF. Once that happens, mission accomplished. In the meantime, if former Federal Reserve Chairperson Janet Yellen is selected for our new U.S. Treasury Secretary, the marriage between the Federal Reserve and the U.S. Treasury Department will be complete. And that will complete the merger between the Federal Reserve and the U.S. Treasury Department. Notice all the power the Federal Reserve has gained due to this pandemic? And people continue to call it the Chinese virus? Yay, sure. Apparently, some of us don't listen to people too well. The Federal Reserve has become our new daddy. And in my opinion, the international banking cartel, who actually control the Federal Reserve, is only in the first stages of their plans. We should see the second stage around the year 2022. The Federal Reserve giveth and the Federal Reserve will taketh away. But I could be completely wrong about them also. We'll just have to wait and see. In the meantime, enjoy this well-planned event 201.